And we're normally live, except on LinkedIn, but I think that works if we check quickly YouTube. Yeah, we're live. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on this third episode of our Women in Blockchain series. Really excited to have you and have an amazing panel of speakers with us today, which I will introduce really shortly after. This event is organized by the Blockchain Game Alliance. It's already the third one. So what is the Blockchain Game Alliance? The Blockchain Game Alliance is a non-profit organization that is committed to promoting blockchain within the game industry. Our goal is to spread awareness around blockchain technology, non-fungible tokens, decentralization, and all the benefits they can bring to our players, creators, developers, and communities in new way in providing new ways for making games, playing games, enjoying games through a lot of different topics. We are also really strong advocate for diversity and more inclusivity of women within our industry. This is already the third event we are running on the topic. It's going really well. We have many speakers, and we are one of our commitments at the BGA is to be more and more inclusive and have, I would say, a board of equal parity. So that's one of the goals I'm working on, and I hope I will be able to reach that goal within the next few months. So that's something I really committed onto. And beside that, we're also providing an open forum for individuals and companies to be able to share knowledge, to collaborate, to present their products, services, to get new users, potentially network, and generate new business partnership potentially. This is really exciting time. Despite this pandemic, we're able to still maintain a lot of our core activities in the Alliance, essentially networking, research, and reporting, representing a growing number of blockchain games companies, and of course, advocating for the use of blockchain within our industry. So we have grown to over 150 members companies already, as you can see on this chart. There's many logos. It's not just only blockchain games company. We are really broadening the spectrum, and we now have development solution, blockchain, investors in the space, legal companies, traditional games companies, etc. So it's getting really excited to see all the different spectrum of companies that are part of the Alliance and supporting this initiative, looking to work together. And you're also welcome to join us. I will provide the link afterwards. Some of the recent activities, as you can see on those screenshots, include running our monthly meetups where we welcome all the new members and we give them the space to present what they are doing toward all the members. We're also running workshop. One of them was about decentralized gaming. We also did one regarding DAOs, decentralized autonomous organization. We'll have one about DeFi soon in July. We are publishing resources about how blockchain collectibles can impact the industry, how play to earn works, and we'll continue to publish more and more on different topics that relates, of course, to NFT, blockchain, gaming, and other topics like NFT and art. We are providing free speaking opportunity to various events, as well as free ticket to those events, and various other opportunity as they arise to promote our members. As I was mentioning, this is already the third event of this series that we are called Women of Blockchain Gaming, NFTs, and Digital Art. So you can see here some of the speakers that we had on the two previous events. And shortly after, we'll be introducing the one that are with us today, the amazing panel. Before that, just one last word. I would like to give a big thank you to our sponsors. So AMD, Ubisoft, Matic, MakerDAO, Animoca Brands, and Algorand, who is a new company, new sponsor, actually, that joined us this month. So big thanks for all of them for supporting this, the Blockchain Game Alliance. You can follow us on Twitter, Medium, Telegram, Discord, and we are always open to any idea, any initiative. So we're a platform to host, to let people talk, to give visibility to your product. So feel free to reach out and we'll make it happen. All right. And I will leave now to Serena. So thank you, everyone. And I'll be behind the scenes.
Serena, I think you're muted. We can't hear you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me now? I'm really sorry about that. Great. Fantastic. I just wanted to really thank Sebastian for introducing the BGA and the work of the Blockchain Game Alliance, and for giving us this opportunity to be connected together and to talk about blockchain and our experiences within the space. So before we get into the presentations of our projects and our own experiences, I just wanted to give a quick breakdown of what we're going to be looking at. So we're going to be talking about the market expansions and how we can bring more women within the blockchain industry. So we're going to have a quick introduction about our speakers today and the projects that we're currently involved. Panel discussions will look at identify the challenges, gaps, and opportunities within the blockchain and gaming industry. Then we're going to dive into the speakers, asking questions to other speakers, and then opening up the floor to the Q&A. So without further ado, I would like to then get into the speakers and give a quick introduction to ourselves. So just a few words about myself and the reason why I'm here. So I'm here to facilitate this conversation for the BGA, but I'm also part of MoCDA, which is the Museum of Contemporary Digital Art, which was founded about a year and a half ago. I also represent NFT London MoCDA, and I also collaborate with Tate Modern for Tate Enterprises. And then if we can go on to the next slide, I will pass on the word to Sparrow. And here we go, Sparrow. Give us a quick introduction about yourself, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm Sparrow. I'm a digital artist, a crypto artist, and a traditional artist, doing encaustic wax medium for quite a few years now. I'm also a full-time software engineer. So the blockchain space has really allowed me to merge two areas of my life. The tech side with the art side. That's basically my story. I'll tell you about the project I'm working on a little bit later.
Thank you so much for your introduction. I think we've got Simona next. Hi, Simona.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. I'm Simona, and I work in a multitude of different projects within the Ethereum ecosystem. Among other things, I am the co-founder of the Bounties Network. I am a proud member of a variety of DAOs. The aim of all of them being, how do we broaden the access to this technology? How do we accelerate adoption and make this space accessible to everyone? So great to be here, and look forward to discussing this further.
Thank you for being here. Okay, we're going to pass on the word to Chloe. Hi, Chloe, and welcome.
Hi everyone, and thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here. So yeah, just a brief notes about what I've been doing. I've also been working with MoCDA, and along with that, for the last 6 years or so, I've been freelancing as a sort of content designer, which is pretty much like content creation, but very heavily in thinking about what the audience is doing and what their needs are. And I think obviously that's something which kind of goes across different industries. As you can see, I've kind of got different things, like different industries that I've been working in, which have been implementing blockchain technology. So I think a lot of it comes down to like accessibility and language in terms of like what I do in my day-to-day job as well. And yeah, and of course, like art is a big part of that too. So yeah, that's just a very brief note. I'll probably go into more detail after some time.
Thank you. And we've got Fanny our next speaker. Hello.
Hi. Thanks for having us. So I do mostly. So I'm taking care of 2 events that are coming up in the next 2 weeks. Actually, bad timing. But one is the CADAF art fair, which is a contemporary and digital art fair that is the 3rd edition taking place online. Thank you, COVID-19. And Radical Exchange is an economic think tank that is also its annual conference is happening this weekend. And so it's kind of my 2 sides of my brain right now, but there's a lot more that I do on the blockchain and digital art side as well. So I've been working with Serena on MoCDA as a curator. Is Turin on the slide, but was a hackathon we did for local purposes, and I do teach as well at FIT and Christie's Education. So that's me.
Thank you for being here. And then we're going to pass on the word to Genevieve. Hello, and welcome to this panel.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody, and good morning, because I'm sure we have people, and good evening all over the world, hopefully joining us. I'm Genevieve Leveille, and I am the CEO of Agriledger, and we are in the midst of an implementation in the fresh fruit value chain in Haiti, and I'd like to thank Chloe and for bringing me to this, because it actually is very close to some of the aspect of how actually I've been thinking of gamification. Thank you again to everyone for this, and I look forward to this discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, so we are now going to be looking at the projects that we've all been focusing on over the last few years, and we are currently working, and the future projects that we're going to be getting involved. So if we can move on to the next slide, we're going to dive straight into our first project, which is inspired by Sparrow. Do you want to introduce us to your project, Sparrow?
Yeah. So this is brand new. It was conceived just when the COVID-19 lockdowns were beginning to happen. And it's a group of crypto artists who came together to respond to a call by Arts Council England for projects exploring the theme of isolation. It's interesting because Stina came to me when she saw the call, and we thought, well, wouldn't it be great to do this as a group of crypto artists, because we are innately, it seems, used to collaborating and working together, not in a shared space, but virtually across the world. So it felt like a really natural fit for us. We put together the grant proposal, submitted it, and we didn't get the grant. I think Arts Council England is a bit too conservative for a project based on the blockchain in virtual reality, and that probably just, was a bit much for them. We decided to go ahead and do the project anyway, because it was a great idea. We really liked it. We think everybody else will really like it. And as a result, we formed this 105 collective, which we hope to expand once this project completes. So midsummer, June, July now, we'll do an installation in CryptoVoxels that will be the purpose-built installation for this. And as part of that, we are going to invite others to collaborate with us and try and make this more inclusive and reach a broader audience.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for this introduction. I want to pass now the word to Simona, who's going to be talking to us about her projects.
Hi, everyone. So one of the, I mean, again, going back to the fact that there's many different projects that I work in, but the relevant ones in this case are very much the ones centered around women and supporting women-led projects, which is one of the DAOs that I mentioned earlier, and that is Meta Gamma Delta. The idea with it was to essentially have a space that enables conversations, that enables education, and that enables monetary support for projects built in the blockchain space that are led by women. And so one of the main things that we've been focusing on has been discussing finance with different different groups of women, not necessarily from the space, and also looking at opportunities for enabling, again, projects or events or opportunities for financing for these projects. And one of them ties in very, very well with the ETH Scholars programs that we have seen around DevCon and also around ETH Denver. What we're trying to do there as well is, again, enable access to a lot of these resources that we have in the ecosystem for a lot broader of an audience of or of broader groups. So yeah, that's those are the current ones and the most relevant to this discussion. And I'll also link more information to the project so that everybody can check them out afterwards.
Fantastic, thank you. Yes, we're going to be sharing the links to our projects very soon. So if anybody is interested in reaching out to us and learning more, absolutely feel free to do so. Thank you, Simona. I'm going to pass now the word to Chloe and her projects.
Hi, so yeah, basically like what you can see here is from, I guess, for the last 3 years or so. So in terms of like women and blockchain, I've been quite lucky, I think, in terms of the, I've been working with an agency based in San Francisco called Seafoam Media. And with them, we went to different conferences. You can see some of the pictures here. And I mean, that's quite a big, one of the first things that came to mind, really, when I was thinking about my experience as a woman in the space, just because you're very aware of the lack of women in these spaces when you're in this sort of public event, and you're literally one of the only women in the room. So on the right, you can see myself with Rhiannon and Unica, and that was in Malta. And we were really like sticking together. Whereas like on the left-hand side of the screen was a specific women's event that happened in Amsterdam. So that was like really insightful. And it's the same with MoCDA as well, that we've got quite a sort of women-dominated team. And I think it has changed the kind of way that the team dynamic works. So I found that, like personally, in terms of representation and understanding where everyone's coming from, that you have kind of more diverse opinion in the team generally. So yeah, and like I mentioned earlier as well, with Seafoam, we have been working with different types of sectors that were integrating blockchain. So actually one of my favorite projects there was an antique company who actually, I think they're based in Chicago. And they do antique coin collecting, I think from 1964 or something. So it's quite an old-fashioned industry. I quite like the idea of bringing like old tokens with new tokens, and they created that kind of ecosystem as well. And what you can see in the middle of the screen is just a screenshot of a small sort of trivia game that we made, which was quite a nice way of bringing in a way for people to actually be able to use blockchain without necessarily knowing that they're using it, and for an audience that's actually quite different to what they would have actually had before, or what you would imagine would use sort of emerging technologies. So yeah, and then of course there in the corner you can see a small screenshot of the talk that we did with MoCDA at the Tate in, I think it was November last year, which I can't believe how long ago that was. Where we're talking about digital art and specifically centered around the Nam June Paik exhibition that was on. So yeah, it's kind of, I've been dabbling in a few different areas, and even the projects I'm working on now, even outside of blockchain and other things, are quite focused on working out how to bring this kind of, say if it's a new type of technology, whether it's AI or something else, bring that to people in a way that is how it suits them. So rather than just talking at people and expecting them to understand or to even be motivated to understand, you're kind of creating that access and building bridges in sort of more inventive ways. So yeah, that's like in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Chloe, for this introduction to your latest projects. And I'm gonna now pass on the word to Fanny and hear more about her experiences at CADAF and Radical Exchange. Hi, Fanny.
Hi. I guess you need the next slide.
Yeah, we can hear it.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, so I come from almost like an industry dominated, which is the art market, where there's this joke that was at Christie's that actually the complaints at HR were not from minorities, they were from white male who were consistently like joked around by women, and people were assuming they were gay. So HR did not know how to handle this request from white male because there was not a protected class. But so going to the blockchain industry, so I went in with NFT and art and blockchain projects, and through that focus, really entered the blockchain space and consulted for a lot of companies. As Chloe went to a lot of conferences where there were really not many women. And at first people were like, more diversity and panels. And I was like, I love being the only woman. Everybody wants to talk to me. This is amazing. So, but joke aside, like this is something that I think inherently, like it is still a very early space, so dominated by developers. So these biases of like having more white male developers is still very inherent to the blockchain, scope of or landscape of actors. But with the NFTs and like having more artists and crypto artists, like looking at this new type of art movement being created, like I joined the project called CADAF and New Art Academy, which was really, the goal is really to support the expansion and the development of the digital art market, and trying to build like this market and getting more people in. And I think this is where directly we saw much more diversity of not so much like women, but like still like a lot more women artists than in the traditional art market, because there were also a lot of new collaboration with digital art. And it's like we're looking at collaborations with scientists and artists and developers and so on. So this is quite an evolving space every day that is like new. And I think this is also with CADAF, where if you go to the next slide, I think we for this edition we try to develop a new platform that hopefully will bring what is currently missing in the art market, which is a little bit more of a interactive spaces online with more interaction, more community, things that the blockchain space know how to do much better than the art market actually, and trying to see more bridges between the like artists, the technology, developers, and even gamers. So I don't know who is pushing the slides, but I think you need to go to the next slide. So that's my project. I mean, this is like, I do a lot of things, so it's not, I talked about that. Next. Nope, I have to talk about that slide. One more, sorry, like this was not like, I didn't know we had to make it one slide. So so the next slide, if you want to go to the next slide, there's a preview of the platform that you can see live next week. Yes, so we're trying to really use a lot of more like digital native elements to make an art event online, and not just, add a bench in front of a painting to create like 3D space online. So we took a lot from more like streaming industry, like there's a gamification element. I think that is really important, that I'm like really trying to push. So all these bubbles are virtual booths for the art fair, and every time you visit the bubble, it's like popping a bubble, and then it like shrinks in the size, and you can see the number of people visiting. There's a chat, like more things. So it's going to be an experiment. It's not going to be perfect, but hopefully we can have fun and really highlight the artist in a different way. So yeah, and if you go to the next slide, I think the other side, I'm gonna pass very fast on Radical Exchange. This is happening this weekend, and it's a little bit different subject. But there's a lot of artists involved as well. More on like the research and like thinking about this like the future of like using art in a way to think about the future of society, the future of democracies, and I think this is like amazing to see in an economic and political think tank so many artists involved. Judy and Bea from dada.art are like heavily involved. They're hosting a workshop. There's like creative workshops about thinking about the utopia and writing about like a future and getting ideas from artists were the best source for creativity and finding a better way for the future. So that's me. That's my projects.
Thank you so much for this introduction. I'm going to pass on the word now to Genevieve and the Agriledger project.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. So I am Genevieve, and I wanted to tell you I don't belong in the art world like these wonderful ladies. So in a way, I didn't have in terms of preparation as well as they did. But I wanted to take you through the project. Part of also my challenge has been that we went live, and we're now seeing, as you can imagine, the system in live means in the wild. We're not seeing what we had exactly expected. But the problem we were looking to do was working with the government of Haiti to try to empower the bottom 40% of poverty. As you can imagine, that is also many a time made up of women who are tending a parchment farm. We call them farm, but they're really an allotment or really a couple of trees in the back of their house. And how do you create for them access to market and allow them to really participate much greater into the whole value chain? So which means that they actually denote a more equitable share of what has been gathered. So we have learned quite a bit. I've learned things about mangoes and avocados that I didn't know. Everything from also keeping us safe. How do we make sure that the mango and avocado that we get doesn't have worms in there and is clean and looks beautiful? And we went live, and I wish I had done this. My favorite picture is about 4 women going up the mountain, following a guy who's the engineer, the agronomist, with a phone in his hand, and they're going to go pick up the pineapple. We went live on May 1st, and the difference was that the farmers, so imagine COVID is going on, which means really transportation's challenge, market is a challenge, and they sold within 24 hours, and that first shipment sold at about 5x, so 500 times what they would have made if they had sold it in the local market. And this week, the third shipment went in, and I'm happy to report that's about 700%, 7x. So it's going to continue growing. The way we've approached also our blockchain technology is we are not hashing information as much as we are creating a database. So it isn't for purists. the full blockchain, or if you want to say public blockchain, but it is public data, because guess what? You as a customer, when you get that mango or that avocado or whatever, you'll be able to not only tell where it came from, how long it took to get to you. We look at things like being able to tell you, well, because it was off the tree 5 days ago, you got another 10 days, and these are the best ways that so really interacting with the customer. We are looking to give carbon footprint. But the best thing is that because we're also tracking, because one of the things we do is that we do pay back also, we facilitate the payment back to the farmers. We're keeping track of what's being used and how it's being used. So you as a customer, when you're looking at that mango or that piece of fruit, could actually tell what has gone into each part of the value chain. So in the Haiti context, when we looked at the farmer before, he or she was getting about 2% of the value that customer was paying. Now, my initial finding is that it's going to be about 20%. So think about that. And should the price go up, they are participatory to that increase. Yes, the brokers or the cost of sale may go higher, but at least they get to partake to the benefit of the revenue, and everybody else is going to be part. So one of the great things about the blockchain is really creating that service economy. So everyone which is working, even ourselves as a software provider, are service providers to the producers. Thank you.
Thank you so much for illustrating all these wonderful chain that actually goes on. So many things that we end up, consuming every day, but not even realizing how many steps are actually hiding behind what we have on our tables, for example. But I want now to dive into the real conversation and invite everyone to get together and have a great discussion. Because if we can move on to the next slide, what we're going to be looking at now is why we're all here today, why we're all discussing about women in blockchain. Because the question we want to be addressing is, why do we need more women in this industry? And that's something that we maybe have asked others in the past, but it is a question that it has its challenges. So we also see some questions coming from the audience as well. But first of all, I just wanted to address this to our panelists and discuss together, why do we believe we need more women in this industry? I want to give the word to start with to Simona.
So I think, as with anything, having a multitude of different perspectives is incredibly productive. When you look at something from one perspective and one perspective only, that will only, let's say, lead you to a certain type of result. As we have seen in many other industries, we have had this issue for a very long time. The fact that, we aren't inclusive, we do not enable the same level of opportunity for everybody. And in my view, blockchain is potentially an opportunity for us all to try to change that. How we do that should definitely be a complete departure from what we have been doing so far, which is slapping a diversity and inclusion department in our companies and then kind of saying, well, that's that, then tick a box, and then we move on, carrying on as usual. So the need is because we should enable all of the different perspectives in building something. Certainly in building something with a new technology is like the perfect moment. There are so many things available to us now that we haven't necessarily had in a very long time, that we should be very mindful to seize that opportunity and genuinely create avenues for inclusion and for change.
Thank you. I want to invite everyone that wants to address that question. And also, we are getting a question here from Shota asking, what are the challenges for us as women in the space? Maybe Sparrow and Chloe want to address this one.
So I think in terms of challenges in the space, there's something, of course, with different perspectives comes different opinions as well. And I think there's something to say about the fact that if you are in a situation that's uncomfortable, or you're not sure exactly kind of where the line is, where and like, for example, if you're in a meeting or a conference with a potential client or something, and you're unsure if something that was said was kind of crossing the line somewhere, you don't have necessarily a way to kind of relay that with anyone. And it's kind of, it's almost like there's not that safe space to have some other opinions, especially from women or other groups as well. And with that as well, having support if you offer something that's maybe unconventional in terms of a solution in whatever way, then that might not be taken very well if it's something that maybe the majority of the team aren't familiar with. And I think also with women, because of course we know that the coding and tech world is dominated still by men, and there's a lot of different, you could basically argue why that is for a long time. But one thing being for example, if women or young girls even aren't encouraged to go further with that sort of career from a young age, they might end up in another career. I ended up in graphic design for a short time, which is somewhere between art and tech as well, I guess, if you look at it like that. And that was because I don't think I was really encouraged to kind of go into tech, whereas you might say that a boy is. And with that, there's maybe some problem with gatekeeping, that if you didn't have this exact background with this kind of experience, even from this institution or whatever the case, whether that's in tech or art, then you're kind of met with a lot of hurdles, I think, when you're entering. And a lot of women, of course, are coming from quite diverse backgrounds in terms of their professional experience. So I would say that's one thing. I mean, for me, I'm kind of, like, all of us here really are sort of in the crossroads of a few different areas. And that's, I personally think that's a huge asset. But I'm only just kind of becoming confident with that. It's something which I think is going to be even more necessary moving forwards when we're thinking more about how to create technology or gaming or art as well, arguably, for kind of reaching wider audiences, like on a global level, not just within this very small clique or whatever situation we're in. So Sparrow, I'm very interested to hear what you think as well as an artist.
Of course, thank you so much, Chloe. And if we can move on to the next slide, which is actually addressing a good question, I think, for Sparrow, which is, what is your experience as a woman in the blockchain/gaming industry?
Yeah, so it's basically no different to the traditional tech IT industry. I've been a software engineer for over 20 years in the corporate world. And since I joined until now, it has been a problem, a lack of representation within the company to reflect the general population. Yeah. And I was a part of the Women in Technology initiatives all throughout my career there, trying to find ways to encourage not just women to join, but for them to gain visibility within the company and be taken as seriously in some cases as their male colleagues. And I think that's exactly the same as what we see in the blockchain industry. It's exactly what you see in the art world. I mean, if you look at the figures in the art world, even though there are, as Fanny said, a lot of women, if you look at this, the prices, the pricing information of women's art versus men's art, you'll see quite a stark contrast. And we can make all that data available. It is literally, it is just fact. And why that is cultural. So I think the basis for all of this is we have an opportunity in the blockchain community to change that culture blockchain makes it easy to collaborate, easy to transparently and trustlessly interact with each other. And so we can break down that hierarchy of asking permission or being given a place, right, in at the table, because everybody's on an equal playing field. And I think that's really what we need to focus our efforts on, trying to get established as culture in this new industry.
Thank you so much for addressing that. I want to hear from Fanny as well, because I know she has much to say about this topic.
I'll try to be concise. But as Sparrow said, I think this is very interesting. When you look at the traditional art market, as I said, there's like many women, but you look at a lot of companies we work with as CADAF, we always work on a day-to-day with women, like brilliant women, like who make things happen. But there's always a man at the top, you know, like that they report to. That doesn't seem to really do anything. I'm sorry for, you know, men, but it's very much like changing this, like, okay, there's many women in the art market, but really the decision makers and the big like price makers, like on the artist side, are still men. And going into the blockchain industry, as Sparrow said again, like it's an amazing opportunity to, you know, like change that. And there are a few reasons for that. There's sometimes like actually one of the silver lining of the COVID-19 is that you can decide not to say you're a woman, to have your, you know, like it's not the best solution at all. But for example, Sparrow, I didn't know if you were a woman or a man before I saw you on panels. And it's fine. You're a voice of the community at the table, and we respect you for that. It's a shame that like we have, you know, like that. I mean, we don't have to hide it. Like we should be proud of it. But it's also true that like when, you know, we're trying to raise money, like, and I did for a few companies, and right now at CADAF we're like literally an all female team. And there are a lot of funds and a lot of investors who advertise a lot of the, oh, like we love supporting women's project, and I'm not talking about your project, Simona, but like very traditional like VC firms, and it's a lot of PR bullshit, because when it comes to like writing down a check, well, it's a much different story, and that has to change. And again, the fact that women need to have like double the confidence to be at the same table as other men, and prove themselves, it's just freaking wrong. I mean, it's just, you know, like, pardon my French, but it's just wrong. So I think we have to encourage, like, as you know, people who are confident, and like need to encourage other women who might not be, and change that.
Thank you so much for sharing this vision. I think we're entering the real core of the conversation here, and it's so interesting to hear from you, from your experiences, and how you've been facing those challenges within your projects and in life in general. There's some interesting stats that we're going to be looking at. If we can move on to the next slide. And there's also some interesting comments coming from our audience watching live. So we can see here that given that only 25% of computing roles are held by women, and that game design students are 88% male, in your experience, what can be done to leverage these percentages? And that is a question that I would like to address to all of you, in case you do have experience on that. And what is the ideal percentage of what we will be looking at in the near future? I'm just going to be pulling some questions as well and comments we had from the audience, but I would like to hear from you. What do you think this could look like, and what are the gaps? Maybe Sparrow and Fanny could have a vision on that, but also any of you.
Can I go ahead? This is Genevieve.
Genevieve, thank you. Yes, of course.
Yes. One of the things that I think that the pandemic will help with, and I apologize to all of you, I'm American, so my experience may be a little bit different because the schooling is different in how we actually can choose. So I studied sciences and mathematics all my life, but I decided I didn't want to be a programmer. But I think one of the things that we bring in as women, and this is where we need to encourage more women to come in, is the ability to collaborate. Unfortunately, how we're taught to play many a time is by negotiating, not by pushing. So in the space that we're in right now, there's a lot of negotiation that is needed. And mostly when we talk about blockchain, the whole idea about this is many various parties acting together to create something. It isn't, like what we have seen for the last few years is one of the aspects of the blockchain, which is this financial yin yang. And that's why you've seen a lot of male dominance there. Somebody asked a question about how many females are there. I like to say Provenance is led by a woman, Agridigital by a woman, Agriledger is a woman. And we've had this whole dissemination of the industry, quote unquote. But if we look, many of those survival have been women-led organizations. And I can keep going on with the list. You even have Agriledger. So we have to do a couple of things. Is first of all, understand our value and being able to pull out this value. So yes, in technology, it's 80% men in coding. But if we go and we start looking in the fields of banking, yes, there's a lot of men going into banking, but when we look at people like Alison Rose, which is the CEO of NatWest, she didn't just get there. It is women like her, which we need to create the example that is necessary for our young girls to be successful. And we need to understand that participating in this ecosystem does not require you to be a programmer. It does help you to be a programmer because you can then speak the right language. It's like going to China and not having a translator for yourself. You're going to lose. You're never going to be able to communicate. So we need to know how to communicate, but we shouldn't be looking to just be part of it. And I think that we should be looking to be in the leadership position because that's how we're going. And that means looking after the finance, creating the strategy, and basically starting to, my whole thing, I hear about the VCs, but my view is you come to me, you ask me, you don't like it, that's okay. Thank you very much. That's not going to change me because I know I'm good enough and what I'm doing is right. And that's the attitude we all need to have.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's very encouraging to share that with all of you.
So I will say one thing. I do have hope for the future because in the 20 years that I've been a developer, the way people code has changed, right? It's gone from traditional practices to agile practices, which include things like social coding and the whole open source movement. And that type of collaboration and cooperation seems innately more, it feels better to me as a programmer, as a woman programmer. I enjoy that model more. And I think most girls coming through school, when they're taught like that, will innately be more interested in becoming programmers. So although things haven't progressed very far, we're only 20% of the workforce, I do think that it's going in the right direction and it will get better over time.
But I think it's to your point on the it's a big part on the education, right? Like, I mean, even when I was a kid at school, I had sewing lessons when the kids, like the boys, had some like science things, and my daughter with 7 is like already taking aftercare like coding lessons, and this is absolutely making a difference. Like coding for me was like, ooh, like this is boring and very like creative or like something I don't consider, and that is changing. So yeah, hope for the future.
For sure. Chloe, do you want to add something to it?
Yeah, I was just even saying, like, in terms of like school lessons and things, that actually reminds me, I did study like media and gaming when I was like 15 or something. And I vividly remember creating a game, even coding, very basic level. There's one thing to say about coding because you're on MySpace or whatever case you're doing to make some pretty profile. And then no one really giving you direction into going further as it for a career. And then the other thing of just being one of two girls in a class and then having people kind of laugh at the work that you've created because it's different to what everyone else has done. So I think that comes back to what was mentioned maybe once or twice already, this idea of like culture and again, like language and the way it's one thing, I think it was an Angela Davis quote where she basically was saying about diversity is a kind of corporate strategy. And actually there's no point trying to bring people into a space unless you've done something to change the structural layout so that's people can come in and there's like a genuine conscious effort to try and amplify their voice or to give them the same kind of level playing field rather than just say, okay, that token person is here, let's just like tick that box and as if that's magically fixed the problem. So yeah, I really think culture, and then with that, just even from school or the workplace, just the kind of, just even thinking the kind of language you use to respond to people in like day-to-day life, it can have a big impact. Or just like the way that men talk to men or the way men talk to women can be quite different. So yeah, that's my thought. But yeah, I'm also quietly hopeful.
Absolutely. If we can get back to the slides, there's some interesting facts again that I would like to share with all of you. And the next question would be around funding and VC funding, more specifically. What we're going to be looking at is what are the main funding opportunities for women-led projects in this space. So we can see that 28% of funds are given to male-led organizations, and only 15 at present have been given to female-led blockchain industry. And I wanted to know from you, what's your experience in that, in applying for funding for your projects or the projects that you've been involved in, how challenging that has been? If you,
I decided, I think that what happens is that I realized that at some point I will have to go for funding, but I felt that I would be more in control of my project when I actually either self-funded or also looked for real financial. So my project with the Haitian government is a revenue project. So if you go for revenue, then it makes it easier, because what I did not want to do is to have to give too much of my organization to someone who may not have the best interest and ask me to pivot in ways that did not make sense, because what we're trying to do in ways sometimes I've been told is big. And I think this is what happens with many of us in terms of the women projects that I've seen, or the women-led project, I should say, in that we're looking at social impact and we're trying to bring in technology to change the way things are done, be it that it is in the space of derivatives, or as I'm doing in agriculture, or I've seen other projects even in the arts. Many of us will go to these VCs and they don't clearly see, because we're a new way of doing it. So we're not selling. And also what we're not great at doing, what I've learned, is to say, I'm going to make 10x. We're realistic about what we say. So maybe it's the language that we need to learn, how to get that bravado of saying, you know what, yeah, in 3 years, I'll be making this big amount. And that will help us get the raise. We go into these meetings and we get queried and we don't feel comfortable giving those big numbers, or at least I know for myself. So I think that's part of the challenge. I don't think in reality it is that people are not looking to invest. It's more that they would like to see so much more confidence that many of us are able to muster about our projects.
if I can add something to what Genevieve said, like I'm still a big advocate of the, I don't know if you've watched the TED Talk by Amy Cuddy with pose and the sentence like fake it till you become it. And it's true that we just have to be, presenting and acting like overly confident, but it's also with, I think it's also funding is also when you go to VCs and there's a lot of networking and like women tend to shy away from it. Same thing like to say like 10x and but when you look at like where people fundraise, it's a lot of like, oh, I was at the Y incubator, or I was like I know this person from this person. It's a long-term relationship, so it's also like you have to build it, and it's not just like out of the blue being like, oh, why is that person not signing my check? Like nobody's gonna give money for free for women or men, and men. I originally, like, historically have been better at like cultivating this like network and support, and I'm really hoping we can do better on that. So going back to your question, Serena, I think it's a lot on like we just have to take ownership as well on that, and not just say, oh, like, look, we're not getting enough money, like you should keep X percentage for women-led project, because that's just not how things work.
For sure, absolutely. Thank you. There's a comment I wanted to share with everyone that comes from the audience, and it's a question. A study on female professors showed that they were required to do more administrative tasks. Do you find that you are required to do more administrative work than your male counterpart?
No, I give it to them. No, I give it to them to do. What it is, though, I will say that sometimes, because this is my project, this is my company, I'm much more worried about what goes out and how to control it. So controlling means that you are getting more in depth with what is happening. But I think that if that translates in doing more work so that I can be successful, yes. But I disagree that we need to be doing more administrative tasks. And from the beginning of my career, I didn't take shit like that. You put it in front of me and I didn't believe it was my role. So unless you could explain to me why I had to do it, it doesn't matter. You do it yourself. And that went with, it didn't matter at what level that person was. And this is something that I think probably I came out from my home with, because I didn't come from a cultural background such as this. And I think that's, with all the issues that we're seeing right now, we didn't talk about some of the inequities that we are seeing and the disruptions that are going around the world. But I think it's, again, has to do with self acknowledgement of what your worth is and being able to translate that back, no matter what you are, if you're female, black, white, whatever. You need to understand what you're accountable and responsible for that, and then make it clear to others so they don't push your buttons.
Can I just say the best piece of advice I've ever got when I was in the corporate environment that answers this question is that when you're in a meeting and think like there's like mostly men and just you, and someone is like, oh, there's not enough chairs, or you should water, and because like we want to help, we're like, oh yeah, of course, like I'm just gonna get you a glass of water, and beam, you're the assistant. Like, this is not you. And so never stand up, say, oh yeah, oh, there's not enough chairs. Oh, water would be great, thank you. And this is brilliant. Like, it works perfectly. So
I love this.
Do it next time.
I just actually spoke to my mom the other day, because I was she called me and she said she recalled from my brother-in-law that when he came, I had gotten him a job at the bank, and he recalled there was this guy at the desk, and the guy said, I'm going out to lunch. And I said, oh, before you go out to lunch, go get me a coffee. And he thought that was about 25 years ago. He thought that was a big deal. But he said, why did you tell him this? I said, well, that's his job. He's going out, get me a coffee.
That's fair
And I
enough.
think that's how we should be thinking. What is your role? And then make sure you get the support or whatever it is that's your due.
Yeah,
So
absolutely
one
right.
one question that I had that occurred to me while Fanny was talking about the VCs, because I don't have experience of that. But so how many women are there in the venture capitalist industry? So how many women are you pitching to? And isn't that part of the problem, that you're always pitching, or generally always pitching, to men?
There's more women. One which is, I don't know if you guys are aware of Blooming Founders. Lou has been doing a bunch of great things, and she had Check on the other day, and she had someone else a couple of days ago. And it's about the language. I think you have to think about it also. To be a VC, you have to build a relationship to get those PEs to put the money with you, or you have to have the money yourself. So it's not something that many of us have, but some of us who are coming out of their ventures are now starting to set up. And I think that's the encouragement that needs to happen, and then creating the network, because usually it's not your own money, you're managing somebody else's money. So those opportunities that need to come into place.
Totally. I just want to send out a quick message to everyone watching live, saying that now is your time to ask questions. So if you do have any to address to our speakers, please send them through, and we're going to be discussing them. There's a couple of questions I wanted to address, and there's one coming from Dominic about the blockchain that Agriledger is using. Here we go.
Yeah, I'd seen the question. The question was, why did I not choose to use what is quote unquote a trust list? I think we think public blockchain means that is total trust and no control. The reality is, when you're looking at this, is you need to also balance privacy and the privacy of those individuals whose goods are. And if we want to use supply chain, now what I have said is information is available in a public manner. What may not be available to you is how many mangoes did that farmer actually do for that season, unless he chooses to give that information. So we have to balance data. And I think this is, the same way I was very excited about this, this talk, because we need to gamify blockchain in order to make it work properly. We also need to start talking about data and how data is going to be used, what data is retained, this whole idea of zero, do you use zero knowledge? Or the reason for R3 for me was using, they have something called a notary, which so within the network, you have zero knowledge and information is not passed back. So, and also nodes don't have to return all the information. So one of the questions I had seen is, how do women get in there? First of all, you need to understand what are the choices, what's available out there, what is public, what is private, what is permission versus unpermission. And really what I was looking for was permissioned. So I didn't talk about the other projects we're running, but we're using that same concept in the supply chain, in the value chain, to be able to allow for equitable share across that value chain to all participants. So that was part of the reason for that. And also the banks are using it, so it's easier to go back to them and when say, well, we don't really want to. Okay, go check your back end and see you're using the system already, and then come and talk to me. Because I don't, I'm sure Sparrow knows about this. You can actually spend 6 months wasting time while somebody is trying to figure out the system. Is it secure enough? By using another company, I also am buying that if there's an attack, they're getting attacked also, and they're going to fix it. It's just not me. I'm not in it for myself only.
Thank you. That's a great piece of advice. And if anyone else wants to add to that, you can. I am watching the comments and pulling questions on the screen for us to be addressing. But in the meantime, I also wanted to get back to our slides and some of the questions as we were entering the speakers asking speakers section of this panel is Fanny, who wanted to address this question to the other speakers, which is, what are the new bridges between the art market and the gaming industry?
Yeah, I think that's a question for Sparrow as well. I have a. It's funny because the first time I spoke with Sebastian from Blockchain Game Alliance was about actually bringing more artists to the sandbox and getting more artists involved. And I think this is a big piece of the puzzle. So I would love to hear, Sparrow, your experience working in the gaming industry, and also now that it's allowed for an artist to, do project for money and not sell their soul to the devil or something like that was considered before. So
yeah, so I think that art pervades everything in the digital world. All of the gaming experiences, all of the web experiences, all of the VR experiences are visual, yeah? And that goes hand in hand with having artists there creating those digital experiences that people can connect with, that people identify with, and build that bond almost, just like you do when you go to a museum and you stand in front of a great artwork and you can connect with that artist. I think that's the role, really, of artists in pretty much any visual industry. I think that it's important, as we're seeing the project that I did to help set a standard royalty on secondary sales for artists, that should be extended beyond just the art platforms that we have currently. It should be extended into any gaming situation, right? So that gets baked in. So, an artist produces something, an artwork for a game, it gets sold in game. A revenue stream could be created for that artist. And, in 10 years time or whatever, 5 years time, that revenue stream, just like streaming music or whatever, those revenue streams are crucial to allowing artists to continue to create. And I think that's really something that often gets overlooked when we think about including art in anything. You don't really think about more than just that one-off, we're going to commission this piece and then it's over. And I think that's another opportunity that the blockchain particularly presents us with.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's definitely more synergies than ever between art and gaming, especially with digital art. Like I just give one example at CADAF, the first edition in New York, which was an in-person art fair. We had an immersive space, and we had some of the stills of Neon District, the blockchain game, and it was brilliant because like these games are designed by artists, and it was okay to have that at an art fair, and for I think this is very promising as well, but with the revenue streams involved, and yeah, I think your work is really the crucial one in the space right now, Sparrow.
Thank you.
Yeah, I might just add, as well, I was thinking about what the, as in terms of entry points and encouraging more people to kind of enter into the space. And I think there's something that gaming has that maybe would be a really big asset for the tech world or the art world or whichever we're looking at here, just to be as, you can kind of enter the gaming scene, whichever genre, without necessarily needing any previous knowledge. And I think art does have that as well, although maybe traditionally can be a little bit knowledge heavy and jargon heavy as well. And obviously with tech, we've discussed already. Whereas I think gaming, not only from a lot of games appealing to children, but also you kind of tap into sort of more the visual and the movement in almost like a psychological way. And it's quite interesting even to think of art from that perspective too. And I think digital art really has that that kind of connection. So yeah, that was just what I was thinking there.
And it's also the definition of gaming. I mean, there's this a tool called pixelchain.art, and it's literally you like just doing like drawing, but it's a little gamifying. So it doesn't have to be like the war games and everything. It can really be broader than like what people think right away when you say the word gaming. You know, it's like you see someone in his big chair and playing on 7 screens. It doesn't have to be that.
There's a quick question I just wanted to address as it comes from Dom, who's watching us live, who wants to ask if we think, do you think that major gaming corporation pushing for a lot of first-person shooter and simulators or car races games make women less attracted to the gaming industry?
I personally loved car chasing games and first-person shooters. I can't say that that's a problem for me personally.
Not at all. No, my friend and I bought. That's probably about 15 years ago. We had gotten the I think it's like the racing, you know, the game for it. I bought her husband the game because it was hot. You couldn't get it. As a gift for his birthday. He opened it, we just picked it up, and she and I sat down for hours playing the game. I'm a total, you know, I actually even, you know, did Mafia Wars forever. And I was one of those big Mafia horror. So I don't think that, and finally, when I bought my car, I basically made sure I got that BMW, which went boom. So we shouldn't assume that women don't like cars. It may not be that we are going to bang them the same way, but I love my car games. So.
And it's also, I mean, it's also, I'm going to be a little cynical, Dominic, on the answer for this one, but these major gaming corporations have so many people like looking for ways to have more clients that if they think women are worth like targeting, they will find a way. Oh, yeah. And if they have enough for now, like with just, you know, who plays the traditional games, it's fine. But I think, you know, like cynically, we should expect that from them anyway.
That's an interesting view. All right. So to conclude this amazing panel, thank you so much for having shared your vision with us. I wanted to ask every one of you to share a little tip, suggestion, bit of advice that you'd like to give to the audience to get away on the challenges that we've identified, what you'd like to suggest everyone should be doing as we finish this panel, something to get away with. So, Simona, what's your bit of advice you'd like to share with everyone?
So I would say it's definitely stand your ground and push for your ideas, and also make sure, like I really loved Fanny's tip from earlier, definitely don't get the coffee. But it's very much about making your voice heard and being very much knowing that you have the same opportunities as everybody else, and pushing for that and making sure that you don't just do it for yourself, but also for others around you. And I think that is, again, a very, very important piece to be able to share with students coming through, with women studying, with women coming into the ecosystem, and making sure that you are yourself a guiding, you know, a guide or somebody who empowers others to speak up, to share their ideas, to actually support them in achieving what they want to achieve, and supporting a lot more women coming in.
Thank you. Chloe, what's your bit of advice you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I think for me personally, I would say that however you're entering the space, whether you're already in the space and you need to make room for others, or whether you're kind of beginning or not really sure if you really belong somewhere, just not to doubt the experience and value that you can actually bring just because it doesn't look conventional of what fits already. because I think that's pretty much what's going to be necessary going forward. And I think it's makes everything a lot more interesting as well.
Fantastic, thank you. Genevieve, what you'd like to share?
Hi, this is Genevieve. In my point of view, it's first of all, be true to yourself. And being true to yourself is believing in your ability. And also, we are lucky today that so much information is available online. And what I've found in the community is that everyone is really willing to share. Unlike where about 25 years ago when SCP first came out, it was the hot thing and everybody wanted to just keep it to themselves. You will find in the blockchain space, everyone is very open to it. And nowadays there are hundreds of material. Doesn't mean everything is right, but at least there is an opportunity to teach yourself. And we don't only need programmers, we need lawyers, we need marketers, we need artists, we need everything, because this is going to be part of the fabric of our lives.
We lost Serena.
She's back.
Okay, sorry guys, I'm back. All right. Okay, so we can hear from Fanny and Sparrow if you'd like to share your.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say again, like, you know, fake it till you become it, because it's very true. Like, nobody is confident by nature. I mean, if you are, great, good for you. But it's don't get scared of the jargon. Like, people will try to impress you, and when you know, like, just ask them to clarify, they are not gonna be able to, because they don't know what they're saying. So most of the time, so don't be shy. Like, really. To impose your view and ask questions and reach out to other women. I think this is like very important. We don't network enough. And when you share your experience with other people and you find yourself like being like, oh yeah, me too. Like, I've had the exact same experience, that gives you confidence to move forward. And yeah.
And Sparrow, what's your highlight for today?
Yeah, I think it really is just make the community welcoming in whatever way that you can, so that people feel like they can belong in this space. And by doing that, we won't just get more women, we'll get more men, we'll get more minorities, we'll get all of the people that we need. Like Genevieve said, we are going to need everyone. So make the space as welcoming as it possibly can be.
For sure. Thank you so much for sharing that, everyone, and for joining us today. I just want to quickly address the next series of talks. So on the 25th, we'll be talking about the challenges with testing blockchain products and dApps. And on the 3rd of July, we're going to be talking about collectibles in gaming and what do we consider of value in the digital space, who collects what and why. So stay tuned for the upcoming talks. And just a final, really, thank you for hosting us at the Blockchain Gaming Alliance, and Sebastian, who's been so nice at helping us organizing all these great series of events and allowing so many women to come together and discuss about blockchain gaming and the wider industry. So thank you so much for supporting us and bringing people together. It's wonderful to be here, and thank you to all the speakers that contributed to this great opportunity that we had about sharing our projects and our vision on this industry. If you would like to hear more about the BGA, the events, and all the amazing activities, please feel free to head over the website or the social media, where you'll be able to find out more information. Once again, thank you everyone for joining us. It's been wonderful to have you. Thank you to all the people watching live. You'll find this recording available on YouTube and social media, so you can watch it at your convenience. You can reach out to us as well. Here's your everyone's email address and Twitter, Telegram. So feel free to get more information from the speakers that you've listened to today. will love to get in touch and tell you more about the projects we are currently working on. Once again, thank you, and have a nice rest of the day, evening, or morning. Thank you all. See you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.